I've heard from,
Okay.
good evening. I've heard from Joyce Cole, who won't be able to make it tonight. So that leaves Mary Kay and Stephen Casey. So why don't we give it till, let's say, 7:02, and we'll get started if they don't show up. How's everybody doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Not bad at all, Adam.
Good to
Apparently my dog's doing well also.
Good to hear. Jaime, we are remote for the time being.
We are, so we're next month is to be seen. So we'll know later in the month. I think that they extended it on April 15th to April 15th. So we'll wait and see what happens around that time, and then we'll be either in person or we'll be extended. We continue to get extended. I don't know what the calculus is at this point, so it could go either way.
Okay, I think we as a commission have made known to you our strong preference to keep it remote as long as possible, maybe even after the pandemic is declared over. But that's just our position.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's some state legislation that's working its way through, and there are people pushing to keep this. New York City community boards are trying to keep their meetings, remote. There's a lot of support, so I think it's, it's up to the state to kind of make the decision about how they want to handle it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. My guess is that at some point they're gonna go back to in-person meetings, but it'll continue to have a hybrid option. And I think, we'll see how that hybrid option looks moving forward. That'll be probably the best possible solution, to have both of those. Currently, I think the hybrid option is actually only works now because people can, members of the public can sort of call in. But, we'll see what happens with law. Hopefully there'll be changes. I agree with you. I'd love to come home every night and do these meetings from home. I have, anywhere from 6 to 10 of these a month. So I hear you.
Okay, so why don't we get started? This is the April meeting, April 2022 meeting of the Village of Ossining Historic Preservation Commission. I'm Adam Markovich, the chair of the commission. Could everybody else in attendance state their name for the record?
Dan Garbowit.
Phil Ferranda.
Catherine Wilson.
Mary Kay.
She's muted.
Sorry about that. Mary Kay Griner.
I'm Jaime Martinez, planning director, staff of the board.
Okay, members Casey and Cole are not with us this evening, but we'll get started. There are no applications on the agenda. It's just some standing items we've discussed in the past, and we'll be discussing some more now. Let's just get into it. Why don't we start with the video and essay contest? We got an entrant, and I wonder if everyone on the call has had an opportunity to review the video that was forwarded to Jamie Kane at the planning department.
Yes, I
Yes, I
looked at
did.
it.
Yes.
Most of us have. Okay.
I'm afraid that I didn't.
Oh.
I'm a quick study. I will catch up on that though.
Phil, why don't I email this to you right now?
Could you email it to my non-Ossining email? That would probably be a little easier.
Yeah, I will do that. You won't be able to watch it now, I don't think, but you'll at least have it. Bear with me a moment.
Do you follow jazz, Phil?
I do.
Do you ever hear of Sonny Sharrock?
I haven't, but I'll probably start hearing about them a lot now that you've uttered their name and put it out there.
Interesting guy. If I could say, it prompted me to listen to an interview he had in Fresh Air on NPR, I don't know, some years ago. It was interesting.
I would eat that stuff up. Jazz
Okay,
and
there you
NPR. I
go.
mean, there's an NPR jazz station across the river in Newark. WBGL. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I'm an
Well,
addict.
he was an Ossining person, apparently. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, Dan is
I
not.
only knew that from that essay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
It's not
Andy.
just a non sequitur. That's what the video entry is about. It's about one of the most famous musicians to come of age here in Ossining, Sonny Sharrock, for whom a street's been named. And his house is still standing. And the essay is about his house and what this student learned in researching him, researching what he's meant to the history of jazz music. He was really, far out there. He was in the avant-garde as a guitarist, I think mostly in the 70s. And he spent a good part of his time here in Ossining. And his house is still standing. It's near Sing Sing. I don't actually know offhand the address.
Yeah, the video, if I
Says-
could say, her pronunciation wasn't so great. Her, the way she pronounced some words were not necessarily so clear to hear, in my view anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on Malcolm Avenue. I think she said it was number 2 Malcolm Avenue.
Oh.
But don't quote me on that. But she did talk about she describes the outside the house, the fact that she never knew that he had lived there. She did a little bit in regards to why he played the guitar, and he really wanted to learn how to play the saxophone.
Right.
Yeah, so she did a very nice job.
I thought so too. And, regrettably, I know Joyce Cole really was out there pounding the pavement, trying to get the word out about this contest. And I did my part. I tried as I could to get, really generate interest at the high school. There's an African-American History Month committee with whom I was in contact by email. I was in touch with the library, the librarian there, and I encouraged her to advertise it. Not sure why there weren't so many takers, but we've got one, and I think she did a nice job. This is a repeat of what happened the first time around. So, my inclination is to award her first place and to let her know sooner rather than later, maybe even before the end of this week.
Is that a motion or?
I don't think we have to make a motion about it. I open it up for discussion. Phil's company is the underwriter of this contest. And certainly, if Phil wants to provide any feedback, on behalf of his company, after he's had an opportunity to view the video, I'm all ears. But I think it would be nice to get in touch with the high school and the student, both of them, before the end of the week, before Black History Month is really in the rear view mirror. Any other thoughts on that?
Is it
Right.
going to be posted
Go ahead.
anywhere, or is it going to be made available for other people to see, or in what form? We have to get permission from her?
That's a great question because, it's one thing to post an essay online, and we did post the winning entry from 2020. It's a little different to post a video, and maybe that's something we should, discuss with the student.
And her parents.
Yes, point very well taken. It's a little bit different. It's a little more personal.
Adam, I can't believe there's only one entry 2 years running. How long did they have to like work on it?
We, part of the issue, I'm afraid, is some miscommunication at the high school, I think. We tried to get this launched at the end of January and have it coincide with Joyce Cole's exhibit at Bethany, which ran from the beginning of Black History Month in February through March 12th.
Mhm.
The hope was to get this thing launched right at the beginning of Black History Month. And Joyce was certainly advertising it through the exhibition at Bethany. But the high school really didn't step up its efforts to get the word out
Yeah.
until very late in the game. I would say, the latter, pushing into mid-February, I think.
I
So
wonder
students had a month.
for the future, I think the library would be a good voice to like make that known. They have the teen room and they send out a lot of newsletters and they have an Instagram. If that's a possibility, I feel like that's just another way to get maybe some high schoolers that are a little more, I don't know, would be perhaps more interested in doing something like that, just to have more options. Because it's really surprising to me that more students didn't want to, especially like seniors or juniors, like it would look good on your, just to have that. So I'm shocked, really. I
It's a
mean, she
good
did.
point. What do they get? What does the winner get?
Glory, number one.
Oh, okay.
And number two, a very, very nice cash prize.
Okay.
Adam, what about talking to the guidance counselors or any of the high school social studies teachers to see if maybe they could help get the word out?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent we've learned some lessons this time around, I think expecting parties outside the HPC to act super fast is, even though they don't have to do anything other than forward the materials we've prepared, is apparently expecting a bit too much. So, not only do we have to get out the materials early, but I guess real early, and send reminders as well. I don't want to I don't want to discredit the efforts that the parties who I did contact made. The village I contacted, they very quickly added the contest to the village web blast. I didn't see any advertising from the library, although they seemed interested. And like I said, with the high school, I just think there was some miscommunication within the high school about who is responsible for advertising it. And Joyce Cole has joined us. Joyce, we just went into discussion of the essay/video contest, talked about the entry we received, which I think we can call our winning entry. Talked a little bit about efforts you and I made to get the word out about this contest. And I think I'd like to get in touch with the high school to break the news, the good news, before the end of the week.
Sounds great. The library was contacted and they were supposed to advertise. The guidance counselors did know. I think Adam is correct and we, if we were able to move sooner, but I'm still a little disappointed because I was actually at the exhibit when there were 4 kids actually writing notes down for their essays. So I'm just so shocked that nothing came in.
I'm shocked too,
Wow.
and to the point where I'm wondering, like, is there miscommunication about like the deadline or where to send it? Like, did we miss something? It's just surprising.
No, they were well aware because they were talking to me and I was like, let's get it in. I was like, look, if you guys are the only ones that get it in, one of you is going to win, or all of you except one is going to win. And I knew what sites they were writing about, and I just don't know what happened.
Yeah. Oh well.
Well, look, I think, it's not the turnout we had hoped for, but I think this is a nonetheless a tremendously positive thing. I know from our experience with this student who won in 2020, it really meant a lot to her and her family. And I think it also meant a lot to the school. It meant something to the village. I see this as a positive undertaking that we should continue. So unless anyone has anything more to add, I will move on.
Okay,
All right. I wanted to talk briefly about the First Baptist Church, which I think, as everybody knows, is not in good physical condition. The steeple in particular, it's rotting in plain sight. I don't know what more the village can do. I don't know how much of an interest the village has taken in the property, but it is visible to anybody who visits the village of Ossining. It is at the top of Main Street. It's massive. And visitors from north and south are greeted by the sight of this deteriorating steeple. And it's no good. And it's been a monument in the village for 180 years, something like that. And it's depressing to see the state it's fallen into. I've made a lot of effort in the past to talk to the congregation about ways forward, doing a condition survey, getting a cost estimate, and then maybe putting out an application for a grant. But both of my contacts at the congregation seem to have moved on. This is a very tiny congregation. I mean, it was about a dozen people or thereabouts a few years ago. And so if my 2 contacts have left, I'm not sure if they've been replaced. So this is a very, very small congregation. I don't know if anyone on tonight's call has any contacts there, but I would welcome a volunteer to perhaps reach out to the pastor there. I think his name is Pastor Courtney. I've met him once. He's a nice guy. And maybe restart the dialogue about what's going on at the church. What can the HPC do to support the church in trying to rehabilitate the steeple, among other parts of the church? But that's the part that's in the most danger.
Adam?
Yeah.
I have contact with the pastor and he actually called me looking for a grant writer. So I'm sure he would love to speak with you regarding it, and I have his phone number I can share with you.
Okay. Why don't we talk more offline about that, Joyce?
Yeah.
This is difficult because there are very few grants out there for religious institutions.
Mhm.
And that's been part of the village's, sort of lack of movement in terms of preservation of this locally landmarked property. There are issues with separation of church and state that have made the village's involvement, other outside grant involvement a little bit complicated. So, but I would like to restart talks. So I'll be in touch with you, Joyce.
Okay.
May I ask, is there a danger? Is there any indication that it's about to collapse and cause injury?
That's a good question, and I think it's a fair one. I'm not sure which street it is, but is it Church Street? I mean, you walk right past the steeple, it potentially could fall onto the sidewalk. I don't know.
I mean, has anyone ever looked, do we have photos of how bad it is inside or anything like that? I mean, has anyone looked at it in a, I don't know, in a technical way? Or we look at it from the street and it looks deteriorated and
well,
that's
what I spoke to the congregation about, or representatives of the congregation a few years ago, which is getting a condition survey. How bad is it? What needs to be done? And then shopping around for some cost estimates.
Hmm.
And it didn't go anywhere.
Adam, I thought at one time they had a fundraiser called Save Our Steeple. I remember seeing that several years ago. I don't know where they got with that endeavor, but I do know that that was out there because I saw a sign.
Yeah. If it's any indication, I mean, the sign is still hanging there, but all the ink is worn away with the weather over the last 2 or 3 years. So I don't know the state of it either. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Does that, if we know it's deteriorating, is there anything in the village code about the building department has to be apprised of this, or, similar to what is in New York City with local law 11, you have to have facade inspections, and not that we have that here, but.
Yeah, now this is totally different from like Smith Robinson House, where you've got a potential argument for demolition by neglect. Either willful or completely neglectful treatment of a building by an owner. That's not what's happening here. The church can't even keep its heat on, from what I understand. That was the economic state of the church a few years ago, is struggling to just pay bills. So other than that demolition by neglect section of the code, I don't think there's really anything else that the village can do under the historic preservation code to address the situation. Okay. Moving on, I just wanted to let the group know that there is a downtown revitalization initiative process underway here in Ossining. Ossining won a very competitive grant from New York State, $10 million, to build stuff, useful stuff to generate economic activity and to revitalize the downtown. And a local planning committee has been assembled. I've been tapped to be on that committee. I've already, as has Joyce Cole. There have been 2 meetings so far. I think there's another one coming up this week. And there are going to be 6 meetings in total. This process concludes in June or early July. And at the end of this process, this committee, which Joyce and I are a part, vote on a series of proposals, projects that this $10 million is going to be used to fund in part. It's considered by the village and by the state itself as seed money, money to get infrastructure construction projects off the ground that may not pay the total cost, but will at least make financing a lot easier. And I think we'll be voting on, it's a handful of projects, 4 or 5, if I understand right. Joyce, correct me if I'm wrong. And there is a role here for people with an interest in historic preservation to make their thoughts and values heard. One of the projects involves the bank building, providing something so that the bank building can be readapted or adaptively reused for some other purpose. It's been vacant for, I'm talking about 200 Main Street, for years, decades now, I think. So that's one among several projects, and I can assure the HPC that Joyce and I will be making our voices heard, and to ensure that the perspective of people who care about preserving Ossining's history is very much heard. So stay tuned on that.
Adam, I have a question. The dumpsters that are outside near 200 Main Street and the church, do you know what they're being used for?
I understand that the village secured funding to do asbestos or lead abatement.
For which building?
200 Main Street.
Okay.
I think it's asbestos.
Okay.
Is that part of the revitalization project, or is that just something separate?
I will keep the group posted on what exactly they're proposing for 200 Main Street.
Okay, thank you.
But I think they've already got the abatement money secured, and they've already, lined that project up.
Thank you.
Sure. There's one thing more on the agenda, but Jaime, I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Website.
Yes, Joyce, do you want to provide an update on the web page?
Yep, it's almost done. It should be ready for you to review at the end of the week.
That sounds good. That sounds good. All right, so Joyce Cole and I will be talking. I will see each other, I think, maybe at the LPC meeting for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative on Thursday. She and I will talk more about Pastor Courtney and the First Baptist Church, and we'll talk about the webpage some more as well. That's all I've got on the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up today?
I do. Before the meeting, I did go on to the HPC website, and I thought it looked great. So just want to put a little kudos out there. It was easy to find and easy to navigate. And I know that was one of the problems that we were discussing. You had to go through so many different clicks on so many different things in order to find exactly where we were. So I found it easier to find, and it looks nice.
That's great to hear. And hopefully by next meeting, we'll have this squared away. We'll have a fully functional web page where people can figure out what's landmarked and what's not here in the village, which is something I think is very, very important that the web page do for people, in addition to directing them to other resources. Speaking of which, I have two other matters that now I'm remembering. We did this tax credit webinar back in the fall of 2021, and my hope was that some people would watch this and think, God, I got to landmark my house, or I got to landmark my building, because I could potentially get 20% tax credit if I do some rehabilitation work, or maybe as much as 40 to 50% if I have a commercial building, if I undertake a rehab project. And actually this reached two separate owners. Dan actually might be able to provide an update. Owners of a big historic Victorian house on Hamilton Avenue reached out to me and said, yes, I really want to landmark my house. Can the HPC help? And I said, I would love to help. Finding time for me right now is very hard, but let me ask if another member on the HPC might be willing to assist. Dan volunteered. Dan, do you have any updates on that?
Well, I spoke to Jeff Schumacher and his husband, whose name escapes me at the moment, own the property. I looked it up. I haven't been to the property personally, but I looked it up on the website. It's 28 Hamilton Avenue, and a very substantial home owned originally, I think, as you once said, by the Schatz family. And Jeff knows very little about the process, but he'd like to go forward and try to landmark or designate his home. And I've had no experience at all. I told him, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm happy to help if I can. I'm retired, so he's going to get back in touch with me. I think I might end up. He said one thing he needs is a floor plan, so I could go there and help him survey, and I could draw up a simple floor plan. And it's at the initial stages, but they sound interested to keep going. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. And please do keep us posted. I know that those the homeowners of that property, saw the video that we did back in the fall, and we're very excited about the prospect of getting tax credits for rehabilitation work. And it's great to hear that you might be able to help them a little bit in the process. And again, just to remind everyone, this is not local landmarking. We're talking about National Historic Register landmarking. You get on the National Register, you're potentially entitled to federal tax credits.
Yeah, he's also, I think Jeff's also on your downtown planning committee.
And he is, yes, it's a small world in Ossining.
He's become very active in only a few years here. I think they were away for like a year living in Geneva.
Yeah.
Because his husband's, I guess, part of the UN. I think that's what I recall. So now they're back, and it's nice. They're, sounds like certainly he has the time to be very active in the community.
Yeah. Another property owner reached out to me. The property is a commercial property, and it is, Joyce, you may have to help me out. It's not the Smith Robinson house. It is the one.
Oh, it's Dr. Hill's house. Sorry, I got excited.
Yeah. What is the name of that property?
It's also the Robinson owned that house as well,
Okay.
but I call it Dr. Hill's house.
Okay. Dr. Hill's house.
Yes.
Dr. Hill was featured in Joyce's exhibition at Bethany. I think was it a chair from his office was in the exhibition? It was terrific.
Yeah, I talked to the property owner. I told him I'd give it to him if he put it back in there.
Joyce, just for the record, do you want to say a word or two? I don't mean to put you on the spot about Dr. Hill and that house.
Okay, so Dr. Hill was the first Black doctor in Ossining. He came, I believe it's 1932 or 35. I can't remember offhand. But he came to Ossining because they told him he would not be welcomed. And he came and became probably the most prominent doctor in town. And he saw both Black and white people. And he let people barter for his services, people that had large families and couldn't afford the medical care, but if they knew how to do like landscaping, he would barter with them. And he was amazing. He was an activist. He tried to get on the school board. He fought for children. There is actually a scholarship still in his name. It's not in his name, but it's still active today that he started. He started a few civic organizations. He was a veteran. I can't say enough about that man. I can go on with him about an hour and a half and still have more to say. But he was a man of the town, and you can run into probably 900 people here that were delivered by him, including.
Wow. Where's the house, Joyce?
State Street. It's 32. 32 State Street.
Hmm. Wow.
It's beautiful. He actually started on Hunter Street and no, he started on Croton Street, went to Hunter Street, and then bought the house on State Street.
Is it designated?
So I'll chime in here. This is an interesting sort of situation. That house, which is a big, I guess you could call it Victorian. I suppose it was built very late 1800s, I believe. Could be early 20th, but I don't think so. Big house, view of the river. And it is locally landmarked. But that won't get the owner the tax credits that I think the owner is interested in. Local landmarking doesn't come with tax credits. So the owner is interested in getting the property listed on the National Register so that he could take advantage of what will be, in this case, commercial tax credits, which are much more substantial than the residential tax credits. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's 40 to 50% of the cost of rehabilitation. So, you know, if he undertakes a $100,000 rehab project and he has the National Register listing, he could deduct, he could take a credit of, let's say, $40,000 against his tax liability in the future. So it's potentially a very significant benefit. And he too would like assistance working on the National Register listing application. And I told him I would reach out to the group to see if anyone has any capacity, meaning free time, to lend a hand.
The property is 30 State Street. I just wanted to
30.
30.
Great.
Well, if he needs a plan, I mean, it's easy for me to do that. So
Okay.
apparently you need a floor plan. I don't know if he has one or not. I could do that.
I should just note that there seem to be two parts to this process. First, you prepare like a preliminary application, which gets reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office. This preliminary application, however, is no small deal. It requires a floor plan, something like 20 photographs, interior and exterior, some historical description. It's not nothing. However, that said, it is not as involved as the full-blown National Park Service historic register application. And my understanding is that many people retain paid consultants to do that. So I think just at this stage, we're trying to get these both with 28 Hamilton Avenue and 30, did you say 32 State Street?
30.
30 State Street, just the preliminary application off to the State Historic Preservation Office. So if anyone, you don't have to tell me now, but if anyone has capacity or interest in lending a hand to this property owner, let me know.
I'll certainly help him with the history of the house.
And Dan, I heard you say that you might be able to assist in drawing up.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard.
Okay.
What, could you just recap the difference in tax credits between resident? Is this a commercial building now?
It is. Yes, I'm sorry.
Which building is it?
I rushed over a little bit.
Oh.
Apparently it's, was originally a residence. I guess Dr. Hill had both lived there and had an office there. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
there it is.
That's it.
What's in it? What's in it now?
Offices.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. I mean, I'm happy to help a private homeowner, but if it's an office and a commercial landlord of sorts, I don't know if, the impetus to volunteer, I mean, it's a commercial undertaking. I think the guy should be able to pay for whatever he needs to have done, unless there's some hardship or it's a nonprofit.
I
That's
think,
frankly my opinion.
this is not a big developer.
Well, okay, if it's somebody who really needs help and, it's not an ongoing business, I guess I'd be open to it. Otherwise, I don't think it's appropriate to jump in and offer free services to somebody who is operating as a business.
Oh, I hear you loud. I hear you loud and clear, Dan. And your point's well taken. I would feel differently if this were a big developer who's just looking for free services. I think this is someone who lives in Ossining, in the town, I believe, and who has purchased this property or is about to purchase it as an investment property, and is looking to do right by it, to preserve as much as he can of the interior and the exterior.
Well, I stand by what I said. I mean, I appreciate what you say, Adam. If it's a commercial, he's an investor. I think that's part of, his expenses to take care of. But if there's some other, extenuating circumstance, I'd be, willing to give it a second thought.
Okay, I understood, and I respect your position. Joyce, you're still in?
I'm still in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. With that said, anything else anyone wishes to mention? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Very good. Okay, so folks, nice seeing you as always. I'll see you again in May, and I'll give you some updates, hopefully some more positive updates then.
Okay, good
Good
night.
night.
Have a good night.
Everyone.